Hey, and welcome back to another week at Beyond the Trailer Park. And yes, we're late. I know. We were waiting for the fucking apocalypse, and like, god damn it, it never happened. So, we're just late. We're sorry.
Is that
Yeah.
is that what you're calling me now?
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
well, not quite. No, Miss Ashley was running a little late, so we decided we would wait for her. So that's why she's claiming we're calling her the apocalypse. But by the way, your lower third's missing.
I know. I'm sitting here. I can't get it to work.
Oh, god damn it.
Everything
Well,
else is fine.
well, I know. I was telling Bobby to hurry up with his equipment there. We didn't have all night.
I know, right? I
Exactly.
can't.
All right. Well, of course, as everyone can hopefully see and hear, I've got my lovely ladies co-host this evening. Beth, how's things in Pennsylvania?
It's a pencil talkie. Crazy, crazy, crazy. There be some crazy shit going down. Not here in PA specifically, but
Yeah,
in
on
the
the
scary, scary world we live in, it just makes me wonder.
mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, we can talk all about that. And of course, Miss Ashley, nice to have you back. We missed you last week.
I feel like I don't know about y'all, but I feel like it's been like forever since I've been here.
I know. And we had fun with Bryce, too, talking about all Mormon stuff.
I know. I kind of missed Bryce. I was upset that I couldn't be there. Trust me, I would have much rather have been here than there.
I know. But, hey, you're here now, so this is good.
Yes, I am, and I'm glad to be back.
Yay!
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Of course, we all were told that, the blood moon was gonna, like, kill everybody and the world overnight. But as you can see, we're all still here. Yet another failed apocalypse prediction. So I think there's another one coming up on October 7th, isn't there?
I don't know. I've heard so many dates surrounding this clump of bullshit that I can't even keep them straight. I
Yeah,
mean, it's,
the same exact thing.
I've heard the 23rd, the 25th, the 27th, October 7th, October 15th, and I've also heard October 29th.
Yeah. I've heard the 7th a few times, but I forget where anybody's getting that from exactly. But
Yeah, I can't cite any. So this is just stuff like when I scroll through my news feed.
yeah.
And the funny thing is, like, some of the dates are actually coming from the exact same person.
Oh, jeez.
It's like, dude, make up your fucking mind.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
mean,
we thought Harold Camping was bad. I
yeah,
mean,
he only did it 3 times.
yeah. Mm.
I'm trying to figure out how many I have lived through.
Who was it with the J Dubs that got it wrong like two or three times too?
Oh, we were talking about that the other day because
Yeah.
I was just so flabbergasted about how they had because they were talking about how they had to change their doctrine to
Yeah.
yeah.
I know the Millerites back in the 1800s had to, and there aren't the J Dubs, what am I confusing?
Yes. Yeah. No,
Branch off of the Millerites. Or am
I
I
think
wrong about that?
I think so. But I know the one with the J Dubs was actually in 1977.
Oh, here's the October 7th bullshit.
Okay.
The claimants, this is according to Wikipedia. Excuse me, this is bad today. Chris McCain and the E-Bible Fellowship group predict the possible destruction of the universe on this date, which is 1600 days after Harold Camping. Well, they didn't really tell us very much.
No,
But yeah,
it wasn't it somebody who said that the world was going to end 500 days or months or something after they said so. I don't know. It was something to do with
well,
500.
just to give you an idea, I was going to count up how many have occurred since I've been alive. Needless to say, I haven't even got past this current decade.
Yeah.
2020 to 2010, and we're already over 7 or 8. So I'm not even. I mean, just in the last 15 years, we've already had 30 or 40.
Yeah.
And I remember reading, it was XJ Dubs talking about their doctrine said that the apocalypse or rapture, whatever the fuck they want to call it, was going to happen in 1977, and in the 60s and 70s, that was a big selling point on getting people to convert, was like, hey, we know, that Jeebus is coming back, and at 1977 is it, and all of that. And that was a big deal for a lot of them, that, they sold everything. There were people who were like, oh, I didn't even bother thinking about even going to high school because I knew I was going to be with Jesus by then.
Yeah, here's the JW thing. This is just a little blurb from Wiki. From 66 on, J-Dubs published articles which stated that the fall of 1975 would be 6,000 years since man's creation, and suggested that Armageddon could be finished by then. So let's see.
75. Okay, I was off.
It's called. They said it's called the Worldwide Jubilee.
Now, see, when you say that, I picture the talking Moses head from South Park, Jubilee.
It says, how appropriate would it be for Jehovah God to make of this coming seventh? How appropriate it would be for Jehovah God to make of this coming seventh period of 1,000 years a Sabbath of rest and release, a great jubilee. So that's where they're getting the jubilee part from. Sabbath for the proclaiming of liberty throughout the earth to all of its inhabitants.
So some guy just pulled it out of his ass and said, hey, it'd be really cool if God did this, so we're just going to say he's going to.
Sounds like it.
Oh, jeez. Hey, it's Tucker.
Hey.
Howdy ho. Welcome from the actual trailer park. Thanks for joining us. Well, we actually did get Miss Ashley here. So, Miss Ashley, I was kind of trolling around saying, like, I don't know if Miss Ashley's going to make it. Can somebody, come, hang with us? So, yay, Tucker's here. Well, at least his forehead's here. I don't know about the rest of them, but...
There you go. Well,
hey, there we go.
Well, I have to say, he makes a great Miss Ashley.
He does. There we go. And now he's
knocked the camera off the other day, so
we're all out of whack.
Ow!
That's okay.
Son of a bitch.
Hi, Fuzz Nuts. There he is. Aw, there's the Fuzz Nuts. Yay. Always fun when these guys show up. So thanks for joining us. We're just talking about the apocalypse and the J-Dubs when they thought the world was going to end in 1975 and how stupid that was.
And what was it, 1812 or something like that?
1912.
1912, yeah. Well, there was the War of 1912. Or no, that was 1812. So no.
Yeah, and the War of 1812 was when Canada actually kicked our asses, so.
Burned down the White House, which actually was pink, so I hear. So we kind of improved on it for you, I think.
Well, just to give you an idea, according to Wiki, these end-time prophecies, and I've stated this before, go back to first century.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they have here Simon Bar Gioria. He was a Essene. Jewish ascetics saw the Jewish revolt against the Romans in 66 through 70. I almost said 1970.
It was probably
as the final end-time battle before the arrival of the Messiah. By the authority of Simon, coins were minted declaring the redemption of Zion. So, I mean, these end-time bullshit things are
Well, and even in the New Testament, they were saying something to the effect that, Jesus was going to come back during the lifetime of the apostles, and well, that didn't fucking happen because they're kind of dead.
Yeah, well, and that's what actually really that whole conundrum about his saying that is what started this whole end time prophecy bullshit, or people's interpretation of what that means.
Well,
That's where this all started, was people were trying to figure out what the fuck the inconsistencies in the Bible meant.
well, and there's the whole wandering Jew mythos,
Mm-hmm.
which started, because supposedly Jesus cursed some Jewish person who didn't believe him, and that Jewish person is immortal and walking the earth until Jesus returns,
Yes.
sort of like the Highlander.
Yeah.
Sounds actually
I haven't watched that in eons.
that sounds an awful lot like the three the three Nephites in Mormon mythology.
Right.
Those are the three guys who, now I can't remember exactly why Jesus did this, but he made them like super missionaries and immortal, and they're just like roaming the earth until Jesus comes back, or forever, I don't remember, but yeah. And there's all these legends from Mormons throughout the decades and centuries that, oh, there was a car accident and some mysterious person came and, pulled an injured person out of the wrecked car before it blew up, and and then they vanished and no one saw them, so it must have been one of the three Nephites. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I'm simply amazed by is I could how the end of times date has changed so many times because it didn't happen, right?
Yeah.
So they keep having to move the date. It's kind of like moving the goalpost, and the thing that blows my mind is that all these people, they think it's the end of the world, but yet they go out and they buy water, they buy canned foods, like hurricanes coming. If it's the end of the world, what the hell do you need water and canned foods for?
Right. Aren't the people who are the most faithful the most likely to be hoovered up by Jeebus at the beginning and not have to live in the whole Mad Max world that us heathens are going to live in?
Right, so
Well, that tells you one of two things. Either A, they really don't believe in the bullshit, or B, they don't think they're going to go where they think they're going to go.
Exactly.
yeah, when people start talking about end of times, you find out who, your Christians like, oh, I'm going to heaven and you're going to hell. Then why the hell are you going to go get water and canned goods?
Exactly.
And then, it's like, oh, well, I might need to, like, because Aunt Sally is probably not going to get raptured, so I thought I'd leave her some, like.
Well, then you get into the whole thing. They can't even agree on when or how it's going to, because you have your premillennialists and your postmillennialists. You have those 7 years of tribulation before Christ comes up. It's like, my God, can't you make it a little bit more simpler so us stupid people could understand it?
Or here's a thought. It's not gonna happen. Stop.
Well,
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is why I said to you, Deb, the other night, I said when I was in college, I avoided anything to do with end times, Armageddon, or prophecy. I took my precursory course that I had to take in Daniel and Revelation, and that's where I was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even like it back then. I hate this kind of stuff even more than I hate apologetics, that I jokingly say. There's no consistency. I mean, just within the Bible about it.
Yeah.
I mean, and everybody has a different interpretation of it. I mean,
well, and the other thing that people don't often realize is that the rapture is not in the damn Bible.
No, it's not.
That's something that modern day fundies made up.
Yeah.
Why, I'm not sure, but
Yeah, it's odd. We have a better chance of getting hit by an asteroid than we do getting raptured by God.
And believe me, there are days when I pray for that asteroid to hit us.
Well, and somebody has said too, like the rapture can't be that bad. It's gonna get rid of all the Christians. Like, how is that a bad thing?
It, well, I have no idea if people are actually making money off it or not. But those folks that set up the website that, oh, we'll hire atheists to look after your pets after you've been
Yes.
raptured. That's just beautiful. I mean, hopefully they're making money off of it, but
Yeah, I hope so too, because I think they can get people to like make a deposit or like
yeah.
pay a subscription or some shit, and whoever thought of that was fucking brilliant, because that's beautiful.
If we have the rapture, we definitely the separation of church and state won't be a problem anymore.
Yeah.
No, no. Well, but then you're gonna end up with, the Scientologists and the Mormons and the Raelians and all those freakos going, well, yeah, those guys are gone, but that's because our God got rid of them and we're right, and now it's
Oh, Jesus, Jeff. Oh my God, that's really scary.
oh, okay,
It's
you.
fucking nightmares. When you had to spoil the good point that Ashley brought up. That's fucking bullshit.
You know damn well somebody would do that.
Yeah, Deb, how dare you be a damn skeptic? Jeez.
Kind of goes. It's kind of my job,
I want a break from all this nut shittery and bat shittery and oh God, I can't even get it through the reactor. Damn it!
So, anybody know where this idea of the stupid rapture came from?
I've heard, but I don't remember. I mean, it's obviously there's always been end time stuff, but I forget who it was. It was some bad shit, obviously.
Yeah.
And
Probably the same batshit people that came up with religion.
no, it was an American. You can thank us for that as well as all the other stuff we've given you by the rest of the world.
Oh, thanks.
Say it was Rush Dooney or Van Til, but I don't remember.
Well, according to Wiki, as I love the fact that Beth keeps calling it, it says authors generally maintain that the pre-tribulation rapture doctrine originated in the 18th century with the preachers' increase in Cotton Mather.
Oh, Cotton Mather, that asshole.
Yeah.
And was then popularized in the 1830s by John Darby.
Lovely.
Hey, just another one of America's wonderful gifts to the world.
Cotton Mather sounds like a country artist.
Oh, now, Beth, you'll know this. Was he the same asshole that was involved in the Salem witch trials?
I am reasonably certain he was.
I think so.
Yes, he was. Known for his vigorous support of the Salem witch trials. And
I knew it.
I knew it. Look it up.
I knew it. Yay! History for the win.
But
So yeah, that's.
Here's a little point. He also left a scientific legacy due to his hybridization experiments and his promotion of inoculation.
Yeah.
Disease prevention. So
Yeah,
in other words, this guy was a vaccination person.
Which it's too.
Well, you can't be having all them diseased people go to heaven now.
Oh hell no!
Well,
it's too bad. It's too bad he couldn't come up with a vaccination for religious stupidity. But
Yeah. He's tied in somehow. The whole vaccination thing. One of the proponents in America was Ben Franklin and George Washington, because they figured out that cowpox, if you inoculated people with that, prevented smallpox. And there's a whole weird history about that, which is rumbling around vaguely in the back of my head that I can't remember at the moment because it's been so long since I've read any of the stuff on it. But it was the American Revolution got vaccination really going in the U.S. because we had to vaccinate the troops against smallpox, but
Right.
it was originally, and I cannot remember her name, it was originally a woman who, in the 1700s or thereabouts, figured out the whole smallpox cowpox connection, and she was a British royal, and she was the one who really pushed it, and then a couple of guys in the U.S. picked up on it as well from that. It's covered in the original series of Connections, but I I can't
Okay.
remember. In the
Yeah.
original series of Connections, it was available on YouTube, thanks to James Burke being a smart guy who says we need to put all this stuff out there so people can study it and understand it.
Learn. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you had the Connection series aired in '79, thereabouts, roughly the same time as the original Cosmos series. And
Right.
if you watch any part of it, watch the last episode because it is insanely prophetic as to how our society is today with politicians and things like that.
Oh wow. That's awesome. But
I
yeah, that's
rewatched it.
yeah.
I rewatched it recently. That's how I know that. So
I just the name Cotton Mather popped into my head right away. I'm like, I know that fucker.
yeah.
Wow. So he came up with the rapture shit. Lovely.
Yeah, he loves you like Jesus does.
Um,
Thanks.
who was who wrote who did the sermon "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God"?
Oh shit. I know that sounds familiar.
Um,
Quick, who's got their Google handy?
What is it? Sinners in the hands of an angry God?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He was roughly the same time as Cotton Mather.
How bad is it? I type in the word sinners and it automatically pops up in the hands of an angry God.
Well,
It
damn.
people read that today. I mean, I had to read it in English class in high school, and it wasn't because they were trying to shove Jeebus down our throat. It was to give us an idea of how society had changed over the years, and
Right.
um, the teacher I had compared it to Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech. So,
Jonathan Edwards.
yeah, he
Jonathan
was
Edwards.
another nut job who apparently the stories around at that time were he liked the little girls.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Barfo.
You know, speaking of that, not, I mean, it really doesn't change the subject. But speaking of that, did anybody notice that the only people that the Pope kissed were the kids?
No, but
When
oh.
did that happen? It was a 10-foot pole.
Well, did you know that the most religious of the Catholic Supreme Court justices were not there when the Pope made his address to Congress?
Yeah, Scalia wasn't there. Was a buyer in
Scalia,
um
Alito, and Thomas are the Catholic ones who weren't there. Breyer and Kagan are Jewish, and they weren't there.
yeah.
Well, I could see, the Jewish folks not caring so much, but the Catholics?
But RGB was there.
Yeah,
Ruth
yeah,
Bader was
Ruth
there.
Bader Ginsburg, and well, the Catholic or the Supreme Court, they're either the members of the Supreme Court are either Catholic or Jewish. There's no Protestants whatsoever on the Supreme Court, which is odd because Jews and Catholics are a minority in the United States. And I'm not advocating a religious test, but you would think that the people on the Supreme Court would be more from the dominant religions than the minority religions in the U.S.
You'd think, but,
Yeah, I
why would
but
that
hey,
make
but hey, some of the Catholics and some of the Jews voted for things like gay marriage and stuff like that. So I'm not going to complain, but
Yeah.
it's just it would be nice if there was some kind of system set up so that we had a Supreme Court that reflected the diversity of America. We don't have any. We've never had an Asian Supreme Court justice. We've got very, we've got African Americans, we've had Jews, we've had various sects of Protestants, Catholics, but no Asians. We, we, we do have
Yeah.
a Latina on there, but we don't have, you know, other.
Well,
No,
how about a Native American? Like that might be a good thing.
yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty crazy that it's so. Well, what it boils down to is, with the exception of the odd lady who gets on there, it's kind of the old boys club, and it's like who kisses the sitting president's ass the best and to get the
Right,
nomination.
right. 51% of the American population, I believe, is females. So there ought to be
Yeah,
5 female justices and 4 male justices. I've got no problem with that. It,
yeah.
Yeah,
if,
you
if
know that's not going to happen. We were built on a Christian nation.
with penis.
Yes, yes. Penis required for all things, you know. It's fucking. But you know, back to what guy in the white dress there. I got involved in like 3 different threads this week with atheists who are defending this asshole.
Well, it's sort of like with the Dalai Lama. There are people
Yeah.
who in the atheist community absolutely love him. There are people who absolutely hate him. Uh, I will say, in both cases, the Dalai Lama and the Pope have done some positive things. They have not done as much as they possibly could, and I certainly don't have a problem with anybody giving them flack over various
Yeah.
things.
Well, and like okay, so the big one that and not necessarily from atheists but just from everywhere, was the whole, oh, the Pope, he dissed all the politicians to have lunch with the homeless. I'm like, okay, you know what, that might mean something if he turned around and told the Vatican that 2/3 of the however many billions of dollars they have are now going to be used to feed and shelter the homeless throughout the world, because with the amount of money those fuckers have, they could feed and shelter a good chunk of the world's poor and homeless,
Think
but
about
and they don't.
It's been said that they could end poverty just,
Yeah,
I mean, worldwide with the
but
amount of
yeah,
money they have.
yep,
but he did say that the churches in Europe that don't take in the refugees coming from places like Africa should be taxed. So you got to give him that. I mean,
well,
there's plenty of stuff you can bitch at him about with
yeah,
allowing them to
well,
ship the pedophile priest to South Africa or South America. But with
yeah,
him saying that, hey, if you're a church and you're not taking in refugees, you need to pay taxes.
mhm.
That's a big statement.
It is, but
Yeah, I don't
he's
think
not
it is.
he's not even advocating that his own fucking church do anything.
Well, that's true.
Like,
I mean, he's
yeah,
taking in like two or three, refugee families, which, I mean, that's nothing compared to what they can fit in the Vatican, and
exactly. I mean, what he's doing, and this is why when people call him the PR Pope, like Joey Lee Kirkman's new book with the PR
Yeah.
Pope.
right.
That's exactly what he is. He is a facade trying to look like, oh, we're going to be all progressive now and we're going to change how we are. And it's all bullshit, because it's empty gestures.
Right, right,
It's,
right, right,
yeah,
right. I mean, even with him saying, well, they should pay taxes, doesn't mean those churches will pay taxes. Uh,
yeah,
and they're not going to do it on their own. They'd have to be mandated
yeah.
by the various
Well,
governments, and that's not going to
and
happen.
and the worst of it is the Vatican is its own fucking country, so they would just be paying taxes to themselves. So what are they going to do? So in a way, it works because then he can say, well, yeah, I mean, if we had somewhere to pay taxes to, then I'm sure we would. But, we're our own country, so I don't want to. But while they're sitting on billions and billions of dollars, anything he says about feeding the poor is bullshit to me. Do it and then tell everybody else to do it.
Right. I mean, I'll give the guy credit for knowing how to use the symbolism correctly, but
Yes.
he's certainly not done as much as possible. There,
Like there's something to be said in that. Yes, he's better than the last pope in several ways, but
that's not saying much. That's like
no.
How is he better? He's the fucking pope.
Okay, well,
the pope doesn't make him any better than Benedict.
He's marginally less of an asshole than Benedict.
Right. And he is a Black Sabbath fan.
Wow, well, that's impressive.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
There's photos of him as when he's early days as a priest wearing a Black Sabbath T-shirt.
But that makes me think that he's been in the PR gig for a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he's savvy, and they picked him because he was savvy. But anybody who gets the commentators at Fox News so pissed off as he does can't be all that bad. And because he attacks capitalism, and the Fox News guys just get absolutely buttered. I can't. I'm gonna butcher the guy's last name, but it's like Andrew Napolitano. Napolitano. Yeah. He's a judge that is frequently on Fox News. He didn't directly call Pope Frankie a false prophet, but he hinted that he thought Pope Frankie was a false prophet.
Everybody's saying he's a false prophet.
Because
because Israel's here, so we got to have the harbinger around somewhere, because rapture.
But Napolitano is upset because Frankie is too liberal. Napolitano is in the same camp as Mel Gibson as far as, the church never should have done any of the shit that it did with the Vatican II stuff, where it sort of said women were almost human and Jews maybe weren't terribly awful.
Yeah.
What I find so bizarre about this whole bullshit with the Pope is that there's the Pope, and then there's American Catholics.
Yeah.
They're two different organizations.
Yeah.
They're not even remotely connected anymore. I mean, you got the Bill Donahue, who now is going against stuff that the Pope said, and he's the Catholic League, creator.
Right, but apparently Bill Donahue is like, he's like the only member of the Catholic League.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. There's all that whole shtick, but it just kills me because everybody's like, oh, the American Catholics aren't going to listen to him anyway. So what's the fucking point of all this taxpayer money being wasted on his ass being here?
Well,
people that couldn't go to work because the cities were shut down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's balls. That's nasty. That somebody has to lose a day of work just because this guy wants to come and parade his ass around in the town. Like, that's...
Yeah. But I'll be honest, I didn't lose a day of work, but had I known it was going to happen, I probably would have taken the day off. Just having the National Rifle Association convention in town in Nashville fucked everything up. So, I mean, you can't really bitch about a guy who, like the Pope, who comes to visit a city screwing things up, because if you live in a city...
but did Nashville pay... Did government money pay for Nashville's convention?
Oh, yes, they did. Yes, they did, because The city rerouted, set up police and barricades and all this kind of other crap to reroute people around the NRA convention in Nashville. And we also had to deal with Donald Trump being in town.
Oh, fuck.
That's the reason why they shut it down.
President being in town, Republican ticket. Believe me, the kind of shit that New York and Philadelphia and DC had to deal with Frankie being in town, they have to deal with that shit whenever somebody hugely large comes in town. I mean, right now the UN is getting ready to have their general conference where all the world leaders are going to stand up and speak, and fucking like when Fidel Castro was in power, he would come to the UN to speak at this time, and he'd say, "I will be brief," and he would spend 6 hours giving a lecture in front of the UN General Assembly. They have to spend that money, and the difference is that in this case they're spending it on somebody who's a religious leader. But there's if there were a large enough Tibetan population in the U.S. in one given city, when the Dalai Lama showed up there, that city would have to spend as much as they do when the Pope shows up there. You can argue. I mean, I can see both sides of the argument, but let's not pretend that this is the only time the cities spend that kind of bullshit money on something that isn't.
Well, and people here gripe every time the Queen shows up too, or Chuckles and Horseface, or the Prince and the
I just don't get that whole bullshit that the British put up with the royal family.
Okay, so
these are the Americans who were like, "Oh my God, it's Prince Charles and
now wait a minute,
Faith and Billy and whatever the hell else."
Quick funny thing with that, because I've been calling him Chuckles and Horseface for years and years, because I mean, let's face it, the woman wasn't even good looking when she was young, if you've ever seen pictures.
Yeah, but she wasn't Mick Jagger looking like she is now.
No. But it was about 3 years ago. I was in Niagara Falls on our side, but it's like all touristy and stuff. And we have a Madame Tussauds here, the wax museum. So the friend that I was with, we had some time, and we decided to do some of the tourist traps, and we went to Madame Tussauds, and they have, the world leaders kind of section.
Yeah.
Whoever put together that exhibit, I was like, you are amazing, because Horseface is holding a horse on the heart. I was like, yes.
It's too bad she didn't have like apples or sugar cubes in one hand.
I know, but like they had a full-size horse, and she was holding on to the reins, smiling. I'm like, oh yeah, baby, you get it, whoever you are. But for me, it's kind of a funny thing, because my politics generally would completely preclude any kind of support for the royals and whatnot. But as a history nerd and somebody who in English history in particular is something I absolutely love, there's this part of me that says, hey, it's like they're descendants of the real historical people, and there's an allure to that, even though I will freely admit they do absolutely nothing. There's still something about them, like I would kind of be sad if they said there was no more royal family. So while I don't think they do anything useful, I still kind of have a slight affinity for them. So I don't, well, except for Horseface and Chuckles, but
yeah,
that guy.
People who screw their cousins in the States are considered rednecks.
Yes.
I do not
You're
my cousin. It's my uncle.
Well, you know what they say, the closer the can, the deeper it goes in. If you can't keep it in your pants, keep it in the family.
Oh, yeah. But you're actually You're actually not pretty far off, though. Are you familiar with Queen Victoria and her
Yeah,
family at all?
yeah.
Yeah. So
And
yeah.
supposedly,
And
what's his name? Eddie, who resigned to marry the American woman. Uh,
oh, Edward the Eighth.
yeah,
Yeah.
supposedly, um, one of the side effects of inbreeding is a small wiener, and the chick he married apparently had learned vaginal control, and so she could clamp down on.
Now that's a story I had not heard, and the chickie was Wallace Simpson.
Yeah, but
Mrs.
she was an
Simpson.
American divorcee, and that's all I know. I don't really care.
Yeah.
Miss Ashley, I have a question for you. Since you live in a region of the U.S. where inbreeding is rumored to be frequent, I worked with a guy who married his cousin, and it was like a first or second cousin. I don't. It was a little closer for comfort than you would normally like,
Mhm.
and the reason he married her was so that they could keep the name in the family, the last name in the family, and both of them had the same last name. Do you ever have any hear of any of that around where you are?
And actually, it is legal to marry your second cousin here.
I think Tennessee is your first, but I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
not
think I
something I've
can marry my first
researched.
one, but I think you can marry your second one. And yes, people have been known to do that. I
Yeah.
mean, you walk up to somebody and go, "Yeah, he's my second husband cousin. I mean, my second cousin husband." I'm like, "What? I'm out."
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
So,
but I mean, I worked with a guy who, we all thought he was a little banjo player, if you get my
he
meaning.
probably was.
And he
That,
exactly.
that that is common down here. I mean, if the last name is about if the last name's about to disappear, people will. I mean, if it's your second cousin, yeah, they'll marry to have children to keep the name in there.
It's just I mean, I'll confess, I have some very attractive cousins, but the thought of making babies with them is just
Yeah,
not.
and they think it's because the bloodline is so far apart. But I'm sitting here thinking, I don't care. I mean, you're still
Icky. Yeah. Now, when I was like 6, I thought that I wanted to marry my first cousin, but of course I didn't understand exactly. I thought that meant, I got to stay at his house and play with the cool toys all the time,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, it's a little different, but I don't even know what the law is here. I would imagine it's wider than second cousin, but I don't actually know.
Yeah, I did. But I mean, we had this guy I used to work with, and he just dumb. And I worked, and other members of his family, not like sisters or things like that, but cousins worked with him, and they were all like, "Yeah, they married a little too close together." and, oh, and I mean, I swear to God, we had a horrific story. A guy I worked with, he was dating a girl who, I, she was raped repeatedly by her father, and
Hmm.
she became pregnant with him a couple of times. And I mean, some of the children were stillborn, and they were buried in the backyard. Huge scandal and all this. I mean, the guy who was dating her, he was the one who said, "You have to go to the police. You have to explain all this." But it, it just it wasn't that rare, and it's just like, wow, there's,
That's really scary.
yeah, and I mean, you meet people and you kind of joke, maybe their parents were related before they got married, and then you find out, yeah, they
Mm.
were, and it's
Well,
it's whoa.
well, it's kind of scary because I was gonna look up what the law is here. I typed in "Is it legal to marry?" and it came up immediately. Your first cousin. Number 2 is your cousin in Canada. Number 3 is yourself. Number 4 is a cat. And number 5 is yourself in Canada. So people actually think that you could possibly marry yourself in Canada.
Well,
Apparently.
there's that.
I'd be very upset with myself if I had to marry myself.
Well, there's that woman who married the Berlin Wall. There's it may be the same woman or another woman. Some woman married the Eiffel Tower.
Right.
It's there are weird mental disorders, and we don't have the tools. And in the U.S., we don't have the the socialized medical system that might actually help these people live a normal life.
hmm So let's see. In Canada, it says something called consanguinity, which means a relationship that exists between people descended from each other in a line. Example, grandparent, parent, child, grandchild. So in Canada, it says persons related by consanguinity, affinity, or adoption are not prohibited from marrying each other by reason only of the relationship, but no person shall marry another person if they were related lineally or as brother or sister or half-brother or half-sister, including by adoption. A marriage between persons who are related in this manner are void. So, okay, so then it says it also prohibits marriage between brothers. Yeah, so I don't understand quite the adoption part, because I mean, yeah, it's kind of icky, but you're not actually related in that sense. I don't know.
Well, I just pulled up something on the cousins, and I got to tell Tucker he's right. Apparently, I can marry my first cousin in Georgia.
Well, damn!
Yeah, but listen, this is crazy. It says 25 states prohibit marriages between first cousins. 6 states allow first cousin marriage under certain circumstances. Now, they got some crazy circumstances. In North Carolina, here's the one that gets me. In North Carolina, allows first cousin marriage but prohibits double cousin marriage. What the hell is double cousin marriage?
I'm not sure. Maybe we should ask Foda.
Well,
he had two cousins get married this year, although not to each other, because
well, there's been cases where people have I'm blanking on the exact thing, but it was a father and his daughter had been given up for adoption, and he ran into her.
Oh yeah.
And they wound up getting married.
Yes, I remember reading about that just recently. Now that's icky. That's like super icky.
And Beth, you're safe. First cousin marriage is prohibited in Pennsylvania.
Yes, I knew that.
See,
yeah, we actually have a family here, very nice people. Mom's a little wacky, who are product of, we'll say, incest, not necessarily marriage, but it was so bad that their one daughter was actually taken away.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, it causes. I mean, they're really nice people. I mean, I'm friends with 2 of the boys, but the cognitive and mental deficits that they exhibit are blatantly obvious.
In the states where there's certain circumstances that will allow for cousins to get married, you have to be like Illinois, you have to be 50 or older, and one person, it says, or one is unable to reproduce.
Yeah, that's usually the stipulation. That way you won't have offspring.
Well, now, if you take what I cited in Canadian law, this is courthouselibrary.ca, and so it cites the specific law, which only specifically mentions siblings, half-siblings, or adopted siblings. So it says that civil marriages between first cousins are legal in Canada, all of Canada. But it does say that some religious institutions do not support the practice. It is best to contact your specific religious institution to determine their position on the marriage of cousins.
So it reverts back to religion.
Yeah, apparently.
In other words,
how recent was that updated? Because I know there are some countries and some states that are now pushing for first cousin marriages based on the fact that some believe that the genetic problems won't be as prevalent as people think they were. Because the population is bigger now.
This is from May of 2013.
So it's fairly recent.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing about it was when there wasn't as big of a population, there wouldn't be the genetic diversity even amongst family.
And they've actually even got some legal precedent cases cited here. So the earliest of those cases is dated 2002. The most recent of the cited cases is 2011.
There's a novel by the title of Emmeline, which is based on a case that actually happened of a woman who inadvertently married her own son.
Ooh.
It was.
How does that happen?
Well, she was like 12, not 12,
okay,
but a really young woman. She got pregnant by somebody, and this was late 1800s, early 1900s. So when she had the kid, it was sent off for adoption. The kid didn't know that he was raised by somebody else, and he moved to her village that she lived in, and they met and fell in love and got married, and then, we're going to get married, and then when his family came to meet his future bride, they realized, that's your mom. You're not allowed to marry her. I saw a documentary about it because the woman who wrote the novel is Judith Rosner. She did research and had a real tough time finding out any information from the people who actually knew the individuals involved because they didn't want to talk about it.
Of course.
Right, but it was a genuine case of people not knowing that they were related to one another.
Right.
To get married.
Yeah.
And it was a kind of a horrific story. Caused
yeah.
Religion,
Yeah.
To get knocked up as a young
kid. Yeah. Yeah, that never helps, I tell ya. Well, why don't we take a quick break and we'll play this week's segment. And so get out your red books, people, because this week we're going to talk about the Canadian Communist Party and the Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada. And for those of you who may not know, we have an election coming up, a federal election, in less than 4 weeks now. And we've been campaigning since mid-August, and everyone is thoroughly sick of it, and it's the longest campaign period we've had in 150 years.
Oh, you have no idea what pain really is.
I know, it's great. but yes.
Can I
yes,
interject?
Yes. Yes.
With our long election cycle, there's a chance that Donald Trump may fall out, whereas if we had a short election cycle, he'd shoot straight to the top and stay there until the day of the election. So, yeah.
I hear you. You see, that could be a good thing, though. If he got the nomination, that would mean that,
No, because if he got the nomination, there's a chance he could win. And that
okay. Yeah, that would be pretty bad. But
Look,
you know damn well that some world leader somewhere would send an assassination squad the first year, because there's like no way.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The damage he can do before that would happen. Look, in my high school, my senior year, I went to a really small high school. My graduating class was 65 people. It was small.
Right.
We knew each other, okay? And somebody as a gag said for homecoming we should vote for the two most repulsive people in the senior class as king and queen. And everybody says, ha ha, that's funny. Let's do that. Nobody else will do it. So
They won.
Yes. And it's like, wow, that was really horrible of us. And I can just see us in the United States going, I'll vote for this idiot because he's never going to win.
Yeah.
That happens every election cycle here in Emporium.
Mm. All right, folks. Well, we have about 7 minutes-ish. You need a bio break, and we're going to hear all about the communists and the Marxist-Leninists.
We see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. Free healthcare. All this is new. From far and wide, redundant. Oh, Canada. Big smile. We stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, all gods, or no God, glorious and free. Free of smog. Oh, Canada. We stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard. Guard yourself from frostbite. It's all, I don't even know what we're doing here. Thee. Canada, it's an honor.
So next I have the Marxist-Leninist Party, which, as you can guess, are communist in origin. They started out as a communist students group at the University of British Columbia in 1963, and they originally sided with the People's Republic of China back in when all that shit was going down. There's not a whole lot about I didn't actually spend any time on their website because I was sort of familiar with them. Well, they're communists. But they've changed now. They no longer support that style of communism, and they are against what they see as the revisionist Soviet Union. So, like, the Soviet Union is trying to change what communism was. And so that's why they are Marxist-Leninists, because those are the guys who started it all. So they're more like the roots of communism.
So I took a political the political test that who do you side with?
Yeah.
And I actually sided 64% with this party.
Oh,
which I am very surprised at, because I am definitely not for communism.
Yeah.
Maybe some of their policies, but as a bulk system, like, I'm actually I've been kind of surprised at talking to Americans that during the 80s and the Cold War, where I grew up, was the second or the third strategical bombing for the Soviets in Canada. So we actually had like bomb sirens outside of our school, and we did tests. Yeah, so we grew up hating Russians, and it was like an insult to call somebody a Ruski. And I've spoken to Americans that don't know or didn't think about as communism as much as I did growing up, and I find that kind of strange, because it was the American and the Russians that were the real enemy.
Because I never really gave it much thought, and to me, when I learned about communist theory, and to me, I like the theory, but
it's perfect in theory. Like not in theory, not in theory. In hypothesis, it is perfect.
But it doesn't hold up in practice.
Yeah, on paper it is a good hypothesis, a good system, but when you try to implement it
because somebody has to be on top.
It comes down to absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if you take the Marxist, I focus more on the Marxist document, the Communist Manifesto, but you have to throw in there a bit of the Machiavellian Prince. And what people don't realize and they forget when it comes to communism, socialism, and Marxism, they are three distinct, very distinct political ideologies. You start with Marxism, you traverse to socialism, but in practice you end up with communism because of, absolute power corrupting those that are in charge.
That's why modern socialists tend to call themselves democratic socialists instead of just socialists, is because of the stigma that comes along with it.
Yeah.
Because you still want people to have the right to vote. Like if people don't want to live, like if the majority of Canada doesn't want to live under the system that I want to live under, I don't think they should be forced to.
Right.
To live under.
And that's the biggest difference, really, simplistically, between socialism and communism. And here in the U.S. specifically, even just saying the word socialism throws people.
Oh, I know. Yeah, and here
what's very ironic with this is that what most people do not realize is that our whole social security system is based on a Marxist philosophy. We are a socialist country. We have been since the day Social Security was implemented.
And police force and fire department and public libraries and public schools. Like you guys are all the way there except for healthcare. And believe it or not, and I won't go off too much depth because I know we got to get this going. It's almost midnight. We had the same problem when the public healthcare system was being brought in. We had the doctors going after the guy that brought it in, saying he was a communist and sending out public messages. You don't want to live under the communist regime. You don't want them to tell you where you can go to the doctor. That's what they do in Russia. The only difference is, and I don't know why this is, because like we're the same land. We have no fence, basically the same genetically, we're the exact same. But our country doesn't seem to buy into the fear tactics as much when it comes to the political side of things. And I can't explain it. I'm not American, so I don't really know. Anyways, back to you, Deb.
That's okay. So, and interestingly, they used to be called the Communist Party of Canada, Marxist-Leninists. And Elections Canada said, no, we already have a Communist Party of Canada, you have to change it. So then they just became Marxist-Leninist Party of Canada. Next one up is the Communist Party of Canada, which is pretty self-explanatory. The only difference from them is
that was the one I lined up 64% with, not the other one.
Okay. Because the Marxist-Leninists were against the Soviet style. They were into Marxism and Leninism. The Communist Party of Canada is more in line with the Soviet-style communism. So
I'm a Soviet.
Yeah. You Ruski, you.
Ruski. Red Dawn is coming.
Oh, no. So not a whole lot to say about them. They're pretty self-explanatory. Well, there we go, folks. All about communism in Canada. So yeah, we have not one but two communist parties.
Lucky
And
you.
and the funny thing is that the NDP party, which is the National Democratic Party, they actually, most Americans would consider them to be quite communists, and they're not even close. So I find that
Yeah,
amusing.
but let's face it. The most conservative British party or Canadian party would still be considered flaming liberals by the Americans.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Now, I mean, Harper is much more sort of Bush flavored, but he's still, like, for instance, the Republicans would be rabidly trying to change or overturn marriage equality and abortion and that sort of stuff, but Harper's smart enough at least to know that he's got no hope in hell of doing anything with that, and in 10 years he's not even tried to screw with that because he knows it would be political suicide. But what he is doing is, behind the scenes, is totally fucking with science and screwing over anything to do with the environment, so he's a dick that way. But yeah, hopefully we'll be rid of him in about 3 weeks.
Speaking of which, you have heard the story about the British Prime Minister in his college days.
No, which British Prime Minister?
The current one,
Okay.
Abbott or whatever his name is, I forget.
Abbott was Australian.
Right, not,
He got kicked
you're
out.
all foreigners. I forget. I get him all confused. But this is the British one, whoever it is.
I forget who it is right now.
But when he was in college, he was a member of some society which I forget what they are in Britain, but in the U.S. They're like a college fraternity. And the initiation ritual was he had to stick his dick in the mouth of a pig's head, which a dead, a severed pig's head. Which, if you've ever seen the BBC series Black Mirror, should remind you of the first episode. If you've not seen the BBC series Black Mirror and you're a big fan of the Twilight Zone, go check it out. It's on Netflix. It is
Okay.
disturbing and awesome at the same time. Because the premise of the first episode of Black Mirror is that one of the royal princesses is kidnapped, and the only way she'll be released alive by her kidnappers is if the current Prime Minister of England has sex with a live pig on TV.
Oh, I remember that. Yes, I do remember that.
And it's Charlie Brooker who does the series, and he's a brilliant guy. One of the episodes is called 14 Million Credits, which is basically an updated version of the movie Network, which, if you haven't seen it, it was done in the 70s and absolutely predicts Fox News. Absolutely predicts Fox News.
Nice. So Foda has joined us in the Q&A, and he said that the current Prime Minister of England is David Cameron, and he said hashtag Piggate.
Yeah, that's what they're calling it, amongst many other things. The British are pretty good about finding humor in such situations.
Well, and Foda actually got an answer because Miss Ashley got the bright idea to go pester Foda on Messenger, and we have an answer as to what double cousin marriage is. So, Miss Ashley, please enlighten us.
It'd help if I turned up my mic.
That'd be good.
Oh, why start now?
So apparently, double cousin marriage refers, per Dave, double cousin marriage refers to a situation where siblings from one family marry siblings from another family and become parents. The offspring are not permitted to marry because they could have children, and in a double cousin marriage, there's not enough genetic drift to produce viable offspring, often resulting in abandonment into the state's care. And then it says, just remind Deborah of quote unquote Peacock family on X Files. And
Yeah.
precisely what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so we're what double cousin marriage is then is, and you sometimes see this in I don't know so much in real life, but in TV shows where it'd be like, two sets of twins marry each other even though they're completely different family. So like two sisters marry two brothers, and then those cousins, their children, it'd be like,
Right, their children can't, even though they're first cousins, they can't marry
Yes,
each other because there's not enough genetic drift between them.
that's right.
It's sort of like the Egyptian royal families in the time of the pharaohs, where
Yes,
brother
yes.
would marry sister, and
But I still
Yeah,
find
oh
it
yeah.
odd that people can, because I mean, I could go, that's odd because I can go marry my first cousin who we have the same grandparents. His mom and my mom were sisters. The only really difference was that we've got different daddies. Wait a minute, that sounds like a backwoods TV show.
well, I used to work with a gal who she was telling me her best friend from like kindergarten on. It turned out that they had the same father and didn't know it because
Oh wow.
and they were born like days apart, and then her dad was catting around, and it's like,
Oh wow.
and if they'd accidentally bumped into each other and been opposite sex, they may have decided to
Yep.
shack up.
It's entirely possible, yeah.
There
That's
was an
why.
episode of there was an
Yeah.
episode of House where that happened, where a couple of kids fell in love and got married, and then after they got married, they discovered that they had the same daddy.
Oops. Wouldn't that you'd think that would come out when they were getting a marriage license or something, but guess not. Because
Well,
I'm
not
trying
if
to
they
remember
don't know
now.
who the father is.
True. True. I was trying to think back because I got married in 2001, and I don't even remember what the fuck I put on the license now, if they even asked who your parents were or what. But
When Bobby's son Brandon and then went to go file for their marriage license in Pennsylvania, he had to call Bobby and get all sorts of information from him. They wanted to
oh
know his
really?
grandma's name, his granddaddy's name, his name, he had to have all sorts of information about his mom, where all had his dad lived,
What?
Wow,
yeah.
that's because I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't necessarily be able to give that due to circumstances involved with my parents, and I can assure you that there was no inbreeding going on. It was just on my father's side, my my grandparents were forced to get a divorce by their parents because the families didn't like one another, and
Mm,
if my dad hadn't done certain genealogical research, I wouldn't even know who my biological grandfather was.
wow.
I would have assumed it was the guy whose name I have, but I'm actually not related to. Now, the side effect of that is I've met some of my cousins from that side of the family whom I would never have met otherwise. Um, and even the women look like me. And to quote Pete Rose, I make a hell of an ugly woman.
Oh dear.
No, seriously, if you look at like a family portrait on my father's side of the family, we all look like clones of one another, even the women. So
Oh dear.
but it's just one of those weird things, and
Yep.
I mean, for a variety of reasons, I never would have ran into anybody from that side of the family. But I can well imagine that if I were in a situation where I had to fill out all the information, it'd be, oh no, oh no,
Yeah. Well, exactly. Like I would have to go and dig out. I think it's written in one of my baby books as to what my great grandparents' names were, because I remember my two great grandmothers on my father's side, but I only knew them as, Grandma Byerman and great Grandma McTaggart, and that's it. Like, I didn't, I know one of them's first name was Norma, and I think that was Grandma Byerman, but I don't even remember, because, like, when they were alive, it was just, oh, that's great grandma. You don't know their name.
Yeah.
And my mother's side, like, her grandparents were dead long before any of them were even old enough to marry, so I wouldn't have a clue what the hell their name. Now, luckily for me, my grandmother was a genealogy nut, so my mother's side, I actually have a 500-page family tree that she and her cousins put together in 1984. So that's covered, Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if anybody that was born after about, I don't know, 1990 maybe may not be in the book, but, anybody who was born up until, Grandma kept sending out updates right up until about 1990-ish is when she quit kind of really keeping up with it. And that was pre-internet they did that. They actually were, like, writing to people in fucking England going, hi, you have, like, the same name as my great-grandmother. Could you possibly be, like, my long-lost fourth cousin twice removed or some shit?
Yeah, my dad has done similar stuff. I've never been all that interested because I was for a little while, and then I realized none of the shit these people did has any bearing on where I am or who I am.
Well, I actually wouldn't mind if my father's side got done, simply because so McTaggart is a sept, which is like a sub-clan. If anybody knows anything about Scottish clans, there's like the major clans, and then there were families that were sub-clans of whatever. So McTaggart is a sept or a sub-clan of the Ross clan. So Ross is like the main clan. And I have an 1841 book called The History of the Highlands. And in that book, it talks about the history of the actual Macbeth. There really was a Macbeth. And they talk about the real Macbeth. And the real Macbeth was the Thane, or the Lord of Ross. So I could be related to the real Macbeth. So I think it'd be really cool to find that out, simply because of that. So, but
Yeah,
anyway.
Well, my surname is Drake. He was a rather famous guy.
Yeah, Sir Francis.
Yeah, actually, there's no way I could be directly related to him because him and his wife didn't have kids. And then there's a whole bunch of other issues involved in that. But in theory, I could be a cousin. I do know somebody who actually traced their lineage to being a cousin of his, and it's like, wow, guess what? In theory, we might be related. Which is kind of awkward because they were concealing who they were at the time because they were transgender.
Gotcha.
But it was, it was like, well, whatever, I don't care about that. But it was just kind of funny. It's like, wow.
Yeah. Very cool. Beth, you were trying to say something there before?
Well, I just think it's kind of fun. It's funny with the whole genealogy and this intermarrying is, I'm adopted.
Yes.
So which laws would I fall under?
Yeah.
And second, I know absolutely nothing about my bio sperm donor and egg donor. The only thing I know for sure, I was born a healthy baby girl.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
And there was that case that came out some years back, where that fertility doctor was
oh yes
protocol. Oh yeah,
yes. That guy, yes, he was supposed to be fertilizing, like doing IVF, and he was supposed to be taking either the husband's sperm or whatever sperm that the couple had procured for their baby making purposes, but he was substituting his own in every freaking time he did it. So he has like bazillion kids all over the world that people think are their own.
Yeah.
And there's was it Radiolab? I forget which NPR podcast it was where they found out that like the person who has the most descendants was Genghis Khan.
Yes, yes.
In Genghis Khan's camp, and like half of Europe is related to him.
Yes. Well, and he was, I mean, he had an enormous empire at the time, and I'm trying to think, I think the Mongol Empire at that time was bigger than Alexander the Great's, if memories.
It was flying from Asia and knocking on much of Europe. And I don't know how it is in the Canadian educational system, but in the in the U.S. educational system, Europe is just a bunch of funny people who talk weird.
Well, yeah, we kind of outlined who the weird talking people are, but yeah.
But like the National Geographic Society, before they got bought by Rupert Murdoch, they did a project where you paid $100, sent them a cheek swab, they did a DNA analysis.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
They had a case where they said, well, they told some woman she was Siberian, and she's like, no, I'm not Siberian. My family has records going all the way back to like the 14th or 15th century. And she came from this one part of Europe that, I mean, it was like Czechoslovakia.
Oh, and we lost him. He'll be back. I bet you Fuzznuts like jumped on something, and Miss Ashley had a work thing come up for a minute or two. But, oh, here he comes.
Yeah.
Was that Fuzznuts?
I have no idea.
He looks very happy, by the way.
He's licking himself. He's so of course. But anyways, she had genealogical records showing that she was from Czechoslovakia or some Slavic country, and it turned out at that time that the records began was exactly the point when a group of Siberian warriors invaded that Slavic nation and conquered it, and obviously, whatever ancestors got their freak on with an invader, and it was just really bizarre.
That is freaky. That's really cool, though. I wonder if they still do that. I should do that.
Yeah.
Go get DNA done.
I don't know. It was like $100, of course, to get it done. But it was it was her family tree documentation was proof that the genetic record was right, and it's not something that we're taught about, at least in the U.S. I mean, like I said, I don't know about Kanakistan or the rest of the world.
And speaking of, actually, quickly too, speaking of Kanakistan, I was going to mention that after my the segment, but that voice that we were listening to is our friend Dave up in Ottawa, and people should go and listen to his podcast with our friend the Maileys called the Atheist Podcast, which is EH for A, Canada Atheist Podcast. So Dave helped us out with doing all of the political stuff because he lives in the nation's capital and he gets to be around all that shit all the time. So, yay, Dave.
Wait a minute. Your capital is Ottawa?
Yep.
I thought it was like Toronto or something.
No. That's the capital of Ontario is Toronto. Or Toronto.
I thought Ontario was the 51st state.
Not yet, buddy. Not buddy yet. Something tells me you would get Quebec long before you would get us.
It's no joke. I mean, I have been to Canada, so it's the U.S. with different street signs. No offense,
It can be. It can
but
be.
but most Americans don't know nothing about nowhere besides the U.S. And we're lucky if we even know what's going on in the U.S.
That can definitely be true.
Regretfully, is true.
Yeah, I've encountered that from time to time. I heard I had a friend in college who lived near Niagara Falls, and when she was in high school, always got a summer job working at the tourist traps in Niagara Falls, and she used to tell me stories about the people that would come. They weren't just dumb Americans; they were like dumb foreigners in general. But she said it was every summer there would be at least one set of Americans that they would come across with skis in like July and expect that there was going to be somewhere in Ontario to ski, and they're like, oh, you want to know where the slopes are? Okay, well, you want to go west and keep going for about 5 days and you'll hit some mountains, and there you go. But yeah, and my favorite was the person who thought that they turned off the falls at night. They wanted to know what time they should be there to make sure they saw the lit up falls before they turn them off.
And well, supposedly in like Yellowstone, um, one of the most common questions is who plants the wildflowers?
Oh shit! But now, do they have somebody who wants to know when they turn on Old Yeller and stuff too? I would imagine.
Yeah, I would think so. And it's not Old Yeller, it's Old Faithful. Old Yeller was a
Oh,
dog.
sorry, the dog.
Old Yeller was a dog, and he got shot at the end of the movie. I didn't even see that movie, and I know that.
That's what I get for trying to talk and read messages at the same time. So, just so people know, Miss Ashley had a work emergency that unfortunately required her to have to drop out for the evening. So, we'll see her again hopefully next week. But yeah, sorry about that. So yes, I was reading and trying to think and talk at the same time. So obviously I suck at that.
If I inject, I will put the link in. There's it's to a BBC article about a woman who in England who has developed a kit for teaching kids science at school, where they go out and they take samples of soil and things like that in hopes of developing new antibiotics.
Hmm.
And not only is it teaching kids real science, but it could potentially save millions of lives.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and it's apparently fairly, the kit is fairly inexpensive. The kids take a little samples, they put it in a kit, and the kit scans it and sends it up. And it's that kind of thing, which is just freaking amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For
and
sure.
And I guess it's kind of sexist to say, but the woman is amazingly attractive who developed it. I mean, you hate to say it, but at the same time, I mean, you think, well, oh, she's beautiful but dumb. But in this case, she's beautiful but insanely smart, because it's a cheap, inexpensive kit that teaches kids science. And that's the important thing, and the fact that the science they're learning could save millions of people's lives. That's
exactly.
Huge.
But Tucker, you're missing one thing. They're allowed to teach science over in the UK.
Oh,
We're not allowed to teach science in the US.
Shh! Don't bring facts into this discussion.
It's starting to get like that here too. I tell you, they're.
And remember when I said that pray for the asteroid to hit and wipe us all out.
Yeah. Yep. Fuzznuts looks so happy. Aw.
Yes, well, he is a presidential candidate now.
Yes, absolutely. He should be running for office. He's much better looking than the rest of them. Aw. And he's got better hair than Trump, that's for sure.
That's not saying much.
I was gonna say.
Okay.
Better looking hair than Trump.
Yeah, I think, bald people have better hair than Trump. Yeah.
I don't get that. I mean, it's like, I shave my head a couple of times a year. It's like, who cares what this stuff is up here?
Well, I just don't understand how somebody who's a billionaire cannot find one person on the planet who could make his head look reasonably okay. Like even if it means shave it or whatever, or get a really high-end rug or something, but wow.
A former boss of mine claimed to have worked closely with Trump.
Yeah.
And he said, the one thing Trump wanted people to think was that he was a great man.
Well, yeah, of course he does.
And so obviously Trump is insanely vain.
Mm-hmm.
And
which doesn't translate to the ugly hair.
According to this guy, if you did a business deal with Trump, you signed a contract which stated that you took all the risk and Trump got the bulk of the profits. So
why the hell would anyone do that?
Because Trump promised you that anything he dealt with would make money. And most of the things that have Trump's name on them, he doesn't have any involvement in. He's just rented his name to those people. All the Trump casinos, he built them and then sold them to somebody who pays him a royalty to use his name.
Yep.
He took none of the risk. Basically,
well, but the thing is, I'm not sure that I would even, okay, yeah, he has billions of dollars, but that's because he inherited a good chunk of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not even his money.
And I wouldn't want to trust somebody with my investment who's filed for bankruptcy 4 times. I'm shit with money, and I've never filed for bankruptcy. Well,
that just goes to the PR that he uses because he's the Donald.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's the
the perception is anything he touches turns to gold.
And he's the guy who said the only bad publicity is no publicity. He doesn't care if you say nasty things about him so long as you're talking about him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if by some chance he gets elected president, I'm out of this country. I'm not sure where I'm going, but I'm not staying here.
Well, we got a spare room, although you might have to fight Beth for it. I don't know.
I don't know. The rate this bullshittery's going, I don't even know if I'll make it to the next election.
Hey,
God.
Hey, if it comes between me and Beth can have it because I understand her situation. I mean, if things were just a hair different, I'd be in her shoes. So
I hear ya. Well, I might have friends with sofas too, or as the Malays like to say, cooches. Foda asks, he says, Beth has info on where Trump's money came from as a question. So,
the only thing I haven't really looked into it, but from what I've briefly read, supposedly his money is inherited. It's not, he didn't make all that. His seed money, so to speak, what got him started in real estate, came from his father. And
Right.
what's really interesting is that it was his grandfather was also KKK.
Well,
Oh, lovely.
that's par for the course for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And
So
that must be why Trump likes Mexicans so much.
Yeah. But yeah, it's something I want to dig into a little bit more because I've been finding quite a bit of reference to the KKK. I mean, it's pretty much common knowledge with most of the people in the Republican Party, and I'm talking the ultra extreme, not general lay population.
Right.
It's, the connection to the whole KKK. Like when I was looking at doing the stuff on my Kim Davis piece last week, and I was telling you this earlier, Deb, is that one of the lawyers associated with Liberty Counsel, which is Matt Staver's group, was also involved in the Lisa Miller case. Now, for those of you not familiar, that was the two lesbians. They got separated, but they had a child, and the non-biological mother sued to have visitation. Well, instead of allowing it, the biological mother, with the help of Liberty Counsel or individuals associated, fled to South America. Well, this one lawyer has made statements that basically, and as I said in the thing, are a sovereign citizen motif, which is kind of interesting because Matt Staver has also made sovereign citizen ideal. He also, in a roundabout way, supports Kent Hovind, who is a sovereign citizen, in my opinion, and a few other people agree with me. But what's really funny is there is a video of Kent Hovind advertising Laetrile, or vitamin B17. Laetrile is now becoming a backdoor way for sovereign citizens to raise money and it's illegal. You're not supposed to sell it. So there's this big tie-in with KKK, sovereign citizen ideology, and that Saver's right in the middle of it.
Wow.
Well,
it ties in with Trump in the sense with the whole KKK thing and his money, where it came from.
Yeah, well, supposedly Jeb's grandfather, Prescott.
Yeah, he was Prescott was associated with the Nazis.
Yeah, and if you've read about the formation of the Republican Party, it's just insanely ironic because Abraham Lincoln was for immigration. He was against slavery. He was, and Abraham Lincoln basically created the Republican Party. I mean, he wasn't officially listed as one of the people who started it, but if it wasn't for Abraham Lincoln, there wouldn't be a Republican Party.
Well, the funny thing is the Republicans are full of, the highest percentage of Jesus freaks, and yet every last one of them, if Jesus actually showed up in the United States, they would take one look at him and throw his ass back out and call him a communist and all, like, ew, you want to give money to poor people? Gross, and, like, get out.
Like, dirty hippie.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, ew, he's, like, long hair and he wears a dress, right? So, they wouldn't even look twice at him. It just makes me laugh.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of batshittery involved with all of that, for sure. But
that's putting it mildly.
Well, and so we thrown around the Kim Davis a little bit here, but before we close out for there, we started a bit late, so we're gonna go a little bit past 11:30. But just to briefly touch on this is the whole Jacqueline Glenn mess that's been going around. You read any of that, Tucker?
I don't. I probably have, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Give me some of the details.
Sure. So Rebecca Watson posted on her blog, I think it was just yesterday, she posted
Yeah.
it, accusing Jacqueline Glenn of plagiarism. And there's a video attached to the blog entry that shows a fellow who goes by the name of Theoretical Bullshit on YouTube, and next to Jacqueline Glenn, who had a video talking about the Kim Davis affair, and that Jacqueline actually took the video down afterwards. Now, the timing of that, I have no idea when that happened or what, but the accusation is that Jacqueline's video is almost verbatim the same as this Theoretical Bullshit guy's video, and yes, it's similar. And some of the, like, what people are saying is like, well, her points are all the same, and she uses the same words and the same quote cliches and whatnot. But when you look at the actual words, yes, the message is the same, and some of the words are the same, but it's not like the exact same sentences or anything like that. And so Rebecca Watson's all like, oh, she's a plagiarist and, blah, blah, blah. But my thing is, number one, I read, then I looked at the juxtaposition video. I have said some of the absolutely identical things. And, like, not just the idea, but I've actually said, as far as my recollection is, like, almost the exact same sentences.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, how is that plagiarism? I don't know. So that's been going all around Facebook today.
I think I'm showing my age here, but there was some romance novelist approximately 20 years ago.
Okay.
Who got busted for plagiarism, and I saw a comparison of the lines that she plagiarized from these other romance novels, and she later, and this novelist confessed, well, yes, I did borrow it, and she was like in this weird, really repressive marriage where her husband was some publisher, and he was basically forcing her to write these romance novels, and then he died, and so she was just kind of trying to do whatever she could to continue the gravy train. And there were just a handful of words that were the same between what she wrote and what somebody else wrote in this other romance novel, and it was enough to destroy her career.
Yeah.
It's plagiarism is an odd thing, because I can sit there and, if I had nothing but time, I can dig up all kinds of stuff that I had thought of decades ago that are just now people are starting to do, talk about the same kinds of things.
Yeah.
Is it plagiarism? I don't know. I mean, as a kid, I had an idea that somebody should recreate the Library of Alexandria, scan all books in print, put them in, a system that could be easily accessed. That's what Google Books is doing.
Yep.
Did Sergey Brin plagiarize from me, or did we both realize at some point that, hey, this is a really good idea to make it easy?
Exactly. And actually, and thank you, Dave. I was thinking about doing this, and so Dave actually wrote a really good note on this last night, and he's graciously suggested that I share it, so I'm going to do that. So Foda wrote this last night, and he says, on Sunday, September 27, 2015, Rebecca Watson, writing on the Skeptic blog, had a piece about how she thought Jacqueline Glenn plagiarized Scott Clifton, quote, the theoretical bullshit, in one of her videos. After having viewed what Watson has written about this and the material she used to support her position, I have to conclude that Watson is wrong. I believe that the only reason Watson went after Glenn is because Glenn isn't a radical feminist minion. Watson has mentioned Glenn before in 2014. If Glenn was a radical feminist, it's highly unlikely that Watson would have said anything about Glenn at all. This is radical feminism stock in trade. Find something or someone to rail against, no matter how obscure or irrelevant, and blow up social media with it. Theoretical Bullshit's video, and he does provide the URL, and this is all on FODA's Facebook page if you want to catch it. The Purdue non-theist, Purdue University presumably, is a side-by-side comparison of the comments in the video. And he also links to the comparison video. And he says, I will go ahead and admit that the Purdue video seems to show that Glenn plagiarized Clifton's work. The Purdue video indicates that Glenn harvested and then passed off Clifton's idea as her own, and that she failed to provide attribution. Loosely, this could be considered plagiarism. However, several things need to be considered. Watson doesn't seem to understand the nuance of plagiarism, which at its core means taking someone else's original ideas and passing them off as one's own. Glenn actually did not do this. Quite simply, the ideas Glenn presented in her video were not Clifton's original ideas. The discussion had been going on for some time before Clifton made and posted his video, 4 days prior to Glenn's posting. And to wit, every point Clifton raised, with the exception of the MSNBC interview with Mike Huckabee, which is the only thing Glenn might have capitalized on, has been thoroughly discussed for weeks. Ergo, Clifton isn't presenting any original ideas either, but using Watson's logic is ripping them off from other earlier commentators. Worse, the recent piece on this by Watson is preloaded with radical feminism style invective. If Watson had any integrity, she would have reported it as Jacqueline Glenn ripped off comments from Scott Clifton and left it at that. But to be completely honest about it, using Watson's own logic, Watson should have said that Glenn plagiarized Clifton's plagiarized commentary. The problem in this particular situation is that Watson reached a convenient philosophical stopping point, much like irreducible complexity, and went no further, apparently admiring Clifton's work and then refusing to acknowledge that Glenn did nothing different than what Clifton did. But even worse than everything I've mentioned heretofore, Watson seeks to avoid her own hypocrisy by using the example on August 30th of 2015 of the Muslim DMV office and, 1, failing to recognize this wasn't her own original idea, 2, failing to recognize that because using her own logic, her statements came before Clifton's and Clifton must have lifted it from Skeptic, and 3, failing to admit that Watson plagiarized this, quote, original idea from someone else, because I can almost guarantee you Watson wasn't clever enough to come up with this on her own. And that's what Dave had to say.
Well, you and I have talked about it even today. I mean, as a blogger, and now that I'm venturing into doing, quote, video, it's really difficult when you have a subject matter such as Kim Davis affair, when it's already been analyzed from shit to shinola. So, of course, we're all going to have the same talking points. We're going to have the right side talking points and the left side talking points. So, unless we're doing the initial reporting, i.e., well, I'll just say one of the media sources. Unless we're that initial sources, none of what we talk about regarding the Kim Davis affair is going to be original as far as the talking points go. Where the originality comes is like, and I'll be blunt, I'm going to toot my own horn here, is when I did my piece, I was trying to avoid the general talking points. Yes, I used the George Takei quote, but what I found interesting is only 1 or 2 people were talking about the whole idea of Christian exceptionalism. So that's what I focused on, introducing that concept where not just in the Kim Davis affair, you know, but it's in general with any of the faux religious liberty cases. But I mean, neither Clifton or Jacqueline or even Becca have even looked at that. They're all quoting the same crap.
Yeah.
All of them, everybody. I mean, I don't know how many. I mean, I have over 2,000, 3,000 posts and articles about Kim Davis saved, and they all talk. But there's just one every so often. Like another aspect I want to try to focus on is Mike Huckabee's insistence that slavery is still illegal based on the Dred Scott case, and then comparing it to this situation. Well, okay, one or two people have talked about it, but nobody else has. So trying to find that angle, but then the problem is, I don't know Jacqueline. I don't know her work. I think other than this video, I don't think I've watched any of her stuff. And same with the Theoretical Atheist. So has she focused on let's say Clifton did something unique, such as focusing on Dred Scott, and then she kifed that would be plagiarism to me.
Yes, I could see that.
And
or if the statements that she had used in the video were absolutely exactly the same sentences, then I could see that as well, but they're not. I mean, yes, some of the words are the same, some of the specific arrangements of the ideas are the same, but as I've said to a few people on threads, like, I have said almost the exact same sentences.
Yeah, like, I mean, even in my piece, even though I didn't touch on the same talking points, I still, I actually had in there the Islamic DMV person, and I took that out because I'm like, you know what, it's a good analogy, but I had a real life one present itself in the Islamic airline stewardess, so I went with that instead. But now, if someone came along and did the same thing, would I accuse them of plagiarism? No, because it's out there.
Yeah.
Now, if they took what I said, transcribed what I said in my video, transcribed it, and then took those words verbatim, then there might be an issue.
Yes.
And that's the thing. Like, and I've told you, I mean, there's been a couple pieces I've done specifically for my blog, not video, but just written. I would spend maybe a week writing it up, get it published, and then I'd turn around, and the next day, Joe Blow from, I'll say Raw Story, because, other bloggers or other, like Raw Story, have done the exact same frickin' article with the exact same talking points, and I said, Jesus, I'm beginning to think these people are stealing my ideas, jokingly.
Yeah.
But if it's a commentary on a in the news subject, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're talking about a subject that, let's face it, the sane part of the population is going to be on one side of the issue.
Exactly.
Yep.
The insane part of the population is going to be on the other side of the issue.
Yep.
So,
Well, what got me...
I'm not hating on anybody here. It's just like, I mean...
Well, there were two things that really got me when I first read the Skeptic article. And the first thing that caught my attention was, it was like, I don't know, 5 words in, and already Watson was like, anti-feminist vlogger Jacqueline Glenn. Okay, right there, you lost me.
Yep.
Because there is no reason at all to label her in that manner for the purpose of what you are trying to say, other than to poison the well in regards to whether she did something wrong or not. There's no reason to do that at all. And Dave even said that. All she would have had to say is, hey, I think Jacqueline Glenn plagiarized this fellow Clifton, and here's my proof. That's all she would have had to say. Instead of, you know, going on about, oh, she's anti-feminist. And as I said to a couple of people, it sounded exactly like posts I used to see from fundies where they would say, like, oh, so-and-so atheist was caught in a lie. Oh, no, look at that. And the whole idea of mentioning that they were, like, say, the favorite was, oh, a pro-abortionist got caught doing this. You know, it's the same bullshit. And the only reason that you would mention that particular descriptor is to try and
Poison the well.
Poison the well and to make the person look worse than you already think they are. And there's no reason for that. So right there, she lost me. And the second thing that really gave me pause is thinking about if Jacqueline Glenn went and plagiarized, you know, virtually line by line what this guy said, she would have had to have watched his entire video at least twice, I would think, unless she's really good at taking notes and or has an eidetic memory or some shit. You know, you would have had to watch that video, you know, multiple times, writing down everything he said, and then redoing that, because the words are changed. She didn't just take exactly what he said and re-say it. So rework it at least just a minimal degree, and then redo it. And I mean, that's a fuckload of work for something that has been commented on to death even by the time they put out their videos. Mm-hmm. So I cannot fathom why she would go to that degree of work because I don't know. I mean, maybe she did. It doesn't make sense to me. And in the immortal words of Judge Judy, if it doesn't make sense, it didn't happen.
Yeah, but it's, you know, it's one of those things that eventually it boils down to you have to know what somebody was thinking.
Yeah.
Nobody
and you don't.
Yeah. Right.
No,
And
you can't.
And I'm not going to condemn either party in this situation because, you know, I have seen so much where it's like there was a controversy with an atheist organization where, you know, somebody supposedly said this or that, and it was like, well, now, wait a minute. The person talking was a guy who was addressing a group of women at a conference that was supposed to be dealing with women's issues. All right.
Yeah.
Forget what he said. Why is there a guy as the keynote speaker at a women's conference? It should be, you know, I'm not saying he can't speak there, but it should be a woman giving the keynote at such a conference. Forget it's we have a situation where people are fiddling with minute details because, you know, somebody wants to prove they have a bigger wang than somebody else. And they need to worry about the larger issues of how religion is destructive to our society.
This is my beef. Yes, exactly. So instead of getting caught up on who said what first and how much of what was said was exact or wasn't, it's the ideas that are the most important. And there comes a point where, and like Beth has said, you know, that people come out with the same thing that she said almost the same time in the same way. And instead of her spending, because you could probably spend a great deal of time going to all of these other bloggers and demanding, where did you get this idea? Prove to me that you got it before I said it, and blah, blah, blah. But to you, it's more important that the ideas get out there and that people read it and learn then who the fuck said what, when, and how?
Right,
And I mean, there comes a point where that does become important, absolutely. But you have to look at it as, is it really that important to go out and say Jacqueline Glenn's a horrible plagiarist, what a bitch? Or is it more important to say, hey, look, there's another person that's getting the word out about what an idiot Kim Davis is?
right.
You know?
I can argue half a dozen, at least, ideas that I've had over the years that other people have come up with who are way more famous than me. And, maybe you play around with all the timelines and stuff like that. Maybe I didn't come up with them first or whatever. I don't care. The issue is these topics need to be discussed. That's the most important thing. I don't care who gets credit for it, et cetera, et cetera. And I have nothing against Rebecca Watson or anybody else on the matter. Just discuss the topics. That's what counts.
Yep.
Well, and that's part of the problem too. You cannot trademark a thought or an idea in a sense of a verbal idea like the thoughts surrounding Kim Davis. Now, if the thought or idea was something tangible, but like you said, that it really is important to get the message out about the wrong of what is occurring with Kim Davis. I mean, and this has always been the driving force when I really started the blog seriously, was that people aren't seeing this. I have atheists who tell me that dominionism is just a figment. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Okay? Atheists are telling me that. They're like, it's not that big of a deal. We are seeing right now the results of 45 to 50 years of Republican planning to get to the point that we are right now, where we have somebody like Donald Trump that is this close to becoming fucking president. Now, he's not a dominionist per se, but this is what their ideology has done.
Yeah.
And that's what's important. Right now, if the Republicans get in, and were to win the presidency, we are, as atheists, we as LGBT members, if you're pagan, whatever, we're fucked.
If you're sane,
if you're even sane.
Yep.
I mean, you can kiss science goodbye. I mean, Christ, is bad enough we got Cruz on the science committee. I mean, NASA will be gone. It's crazy. That's what we as a community need to be focusing on, not whether Joe Schmo and whoever are writing the same material or videotaping the same material.
Right. I mean, if I say something and it's picked up by the guys at any of the other famous atheist podcasts, Cognitive Dissonance, this
Seth Andrews or somebody,
Dating Atheist, whomever, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a little annoyed that I don't get credit for it, but damn it, get the idea out there, get the discussion going, because that's what's important. I mean, I had an argument with and I'm not going to name him, but a rather famous podcaster in our genre, because they were trying to get people to vote for them in the podcast award of some kind, and I was like, dude, no, don't do that. If you're going to argue for people to support you, don't worry about awards. Say, have your listeners do things that will actually make a difference in the world. That's I don't care. I mean, I will never win an award for anything. I'm fine. I don't care.
Well, going back to the important stuff,
where people value science and rationality. That's all I ask.
Yep.
We could use something that occurred here on Beyond the Trailer Park. when the whole Josh Duggar scandal broke, 2 weeks,
Yeah.
2.5 weeks prior to that happening, we had Vicky Garrison on.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted Vicky on was because I had heard a little bit of rumor that shit was getting hot.
Yeah.
So we had her on. And I am friends with her, and I do follow her work, so it was nice to have her on and to talk to her and to hear her story firsthand and to explain what, the crap with the Duggars. Well, after the Duggar debacle broke, she appeared on another podcast that got all the attention. But
Yeah.
and that's what's important. Somebody else picked up with it and ran with it.
And you know what?
And they have a wider audience, so more people got to hear Vicky's story.
And I didn't give a flying fuck, I was like, hey, I'm just glad that we had a chance to talk to her ourselves. Yep. And so what if we did it first and nobody noticed? Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the message and the information is what is important, not if someone borrowed something from someone else.
Yep.
It's just crazy.
Right.
It is.
And that's why I will not syndicate my blog.
Yeah.
I can understand Rebecca Watson's situation. She has been horribly attacked for, being being intelligent and having a vagina. I mean, you're not supposed to do those two things together, but
right.
So I get that, but there are certain things where you have to say, okay, it might be wrong, but the more important issue is being addressed and being dealt with, and that's what counts. It's not like you're dealing with a situation where, let's say, the Soviets, to go way back in ancient history, have developed a new technology that allows them to do things and gain dominance. I mean, you want the people who are in the lead to be civilized, rational individuals. And so long as it's those folks, that's all that should count, because you play around with, you dig around in science and you find out that, okay, Darwin, he's credited with evolution, but he alone didn't develop it. And what was his name? The guy's name, Wallace or something? I forget now. He had basically the same theory as Darwin, but because of certain minor details, he doesn't get the credit, even though Darwin acknowledged that he had as much influence on the theory of evolution as Darwin did. And you can point to that to any number of things.
Well, after a while, it just becomes pointless to argue over who did what, when, and how. As long as we get there, and as long as we grow as people from the sharing of ideas, that's the way I look at it.
Right.
But,
I mean,
we're getting near midnight here. We should probably look at wrapping things up a bit, though. Did you have anything you want to get out first, Tucker?
Well, I was just going to say, Alexander Graham Bell stole the idea for the telephone.
Yes.
But nobody really complains about the fact that he gets credit for it, even though he, Thomas Edison, and somebody else, whose name I don't remember, who it's
Tesla.
The patent.
Tesla. I was going to say Tesla.
Well, no. There's somebody else. Bell was going to... Bell, who was a Canadian in some
Yes, he was. Yeah.
His future father-in-law was the head of the U.S. Patent Office, or somebody that Bell knew, and said, look, if you're going to marry whomever it was Bell married, you need money, et cetera, et cetera. Here's this patent, change a few things, and you get control of it, and you get credit for inventing the telephone.
Yep.
You know,
Shit happens.
Yeah, exactly. But we're all better off because the telephone.
We have telephones.
Exists. Exactly.
Yep. So, couple little comments. Well, first of all, Foda says that if dominionism doesn't exist, then neither does the wedge document. Nice disappearing trick. and if you, yeah, we don't have time to delve into all of that right now, but if you look up the wedge document, I think Wikipedia has a pretty good page on it. That'll clue you into what we need. And Tucker Foda also thinks that we need to set up a GoFundMe so you could get a new shirt.
Hey, I bought this shirt at the Parthenon replica in Nashville, which has the largest indoor statue in the world, and that statue happens to be of the goddess Athena.
Ah.
And I coincidentally know or have met the artist who designed the sculpture. He's a local guy. One of the things that he did was make a housing for the juicer for Gene Simmons from Kiss.
Ah, nice.
But yeah, no, this just happened to be what I was wearing to work because I work in a job where my clothing gets destroyed. So.
I know. Foda's just being a smartass, but I will warn you that he said the same thing on Facebook and tagged you, so just so you know.
I've responded. But no, seriously.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, no, the Parthenon in Nashville is a classic example of Southern inability to understand history. For the centennial of Tennessee becoming a state in 1886, they had a exhibition where they built all the replicas of all these old buildings. You know, they were just cheap facades like Hollywood movie sets, one of which was the Parthenon. And if you go into the Parthenon today, the replica, which is now made out of concrete instead of cheap, shitty wood, you can see photographs of all these old buildings, and it's like, why the hell did they just decide to make a replica of the original Parthenon after the centennial exhibition started to decay? Because they had, you know, the Parthenon and all these other classical buildings from various parts of the world, and they, you know, like I said, they were cheap, flimsy things. And then they said, oh gosh, in the 1920s, let's make the Parthenon permanent. And it's like, no, make all of them permanent. So they made a aggregate concrete version of the Parthenon, which is, you know, so it's pink stone basically,
right?
Instead of white marble like the original Parthenon.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and it looks nice, and you know, but it wasn't until the 80s that they said, let's make the inside as accurate a reproduction of the original as we possibly can. So until the 80s, the inside, no, I'm sorry, it was the 2000s, because in the 80s they put the marble flooring in, and then until about 2000 they didn't have the statue of Athena. In 2000 or so, they put the statue of they built the statue of Athena inside it, which is just jaw dropping, because it's a 60-foot high statue, and you're like,
damn.
Wow. And it was 06, 05, somewhere around there, maybe 04, where they actually started performing Greek plays.
Cool.
They did. It wasn't the rape of the Sabine women, but it was one of the anti-war ancient Greek plays that they did in there.
I think I know the one. I think we went to see it here 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember the name of it now, but
Favor Strata or something like that.
yeah, something like that. But
They,
so anyway, the shirt is sentimental. In other words.
yeah, because I bought it at the Parthenon in Tennessee. It claims it's the Athens in the South, even though we like the
Yeah.
whole cousin humping thing. Um,
Well, and in Foda, in Tucker's defense, he did kindly join us kind of last minute, so it's not like he knew he was going to be on the show tonight. He just kind of popped in and joined us, so meh. But anyway, we should wrap things up. We're actually a little over 2 hours now, so for Miss Ashley, I will say that you can find her at noreligionrequired.com. They broadcast on Spreaker Sunday nights at 7. Please go and check them out.
and they have a Facebook group.
Yes, they have the No Religion Required fan Facebook group. You can go in there and leave them a message and stuff too. And Beth, where do we find you?
Easiest way is on Twitter at do9998. That's 3 9s and an 8. That connects to both my blog, which is Havoc and Chaos, and also to Facebook, which is Beth A. Hambridge. And I do like to meet new people and discuss stuff and have some fun, so
Yeah.
everything cross-posts so you won't miss anything.
Awesome. And Tucker, where do we find you?
Just Google the Atheist in the Trailer Park, and you'll find me. I'm on Facebook at that. I'm on Twitter at that, and that's what the name of my podcast is.
It is, and co-hosted by the good Professor Fuznuts, of course.
Who is presidential candidate.
Yeah, and who is absolutely adorable and very, very happy right now. And of course, you can find me here. You can also find me, I've got my lovely new scrolling ticker here at the bottom with all my Twitters and stuff. So, of course, there's Atheist Apocalypse, and we dropped episode 4 today. So if you haven't already, go to atheistapocalypse.com and have a listen. We're going to find out who moved my cheese this time around. So do check us out, and that's at aapodcast.com, podcastshow.com, or that's Twitter, at AA Podcast Show. You can find us there, and also mysecularsavior.com. Of course, Sundays at midnight. I don't have a Twitter up there, but Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. I'm a panelist on there. And occasionally I show up on Forbidden Fruit Radio Show when I might have a spare minute or two. So you can find me in all those places. Of course, my Facebook. We have also beyondthetrailerpark@gmail.com if you want to send us a message, feedback, tell us we are all going to burn in hell for eternity, whatever turns you crank, that's perfectly fine as well. And of course, we do have a Patreon, so patreon.com/beyondthetrailerpark if you would like to support us. And next week, we will be here, of course, and we are going to be speaking to a gentleman named David Rand, who runs the Atheist Freethinkers website. So, and that's out of Montreal, Canada. So we're going to talk to him. He was one of the speakers at the non-con. And Beth tells me I forgot, yes, Beth is still looking for support after her stroke. So if you could spare a little bit of money, she is still running her GoFundMe campaign, and you can find that on her Facebook as well. So please do that if you can at all. She's doing better, back working, but it would be nice if you didn't have to work quite so much, I think, because, you know.
Yeah, I'm officially back to work full time, but I still have a good 2-week gap till I see that funds, and so.
Yeah, that's the downside of.
Yeah. going back and transitioning. But this will be the last week for the GoFundMe. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, if anybody can do that, we would greatly appreciate it for sure.
Every episode I've mentioned it since.
Yay! Well, Tucker, we totally appreciate that because, well, you're a cool guy and stuff. So, great. And and thank you so much for dropping in and hanging out with us. We really appreciate that. We knew Ashley may or may not be able to join us, and as it turned out, it was she could and she couldn't. So we really appreciate you dropping in and hanging out, and we'll definitely have to do that again as well. So, and thank you very, very much to Dave Foda for allowing us to share his note. We appreciate that as well, and well written as always. So thank you, Dave. And so I think, as I say, next week, David Rand of Atheist Freethinkers website, and he's going to come talk to us and probably talk to us a bit about blasphemy laws, which is what we talked about with him at the non-conference. And so come join us next week when we do that. And so until then, I am going to leave you all with Foda's Humanist Creed.